Hello and welcome. In this video, I am going to be comparing a Gabrielle bag from Moynat that was made pre-2021 when the old creative director Ramesh Nair was still at the brand. And I'm going to be comparing it with a post-2021 bag. So a bag that was made after Ramesh Nair had left the brand. I'm Anesu Sagonda and I produce educational luxury content for anyone after the finer things, whether you're young and starting out in life and wanting to reap the benefits of buying better quality from the get-go, or you're into luxury but you want to focus more on high quality under the radar brands, or you're new to money and wanting to learn how to navigate the terrain, then my content is geared towards you. Late last year, I released a video entitled Moynat is in Trouble. I'm going to attach the video above. And I created that video because 9 months prior to that, 9 months in the build up to that video, I had noticed that the showrooms I was familiar with, Mount Street in London, Concession in Harrods, in Paris, their flagship on Rue Saint-Honoré, and their concessions in Bon Marché, Galeries Fayette. Whenever I went into any of those stores, the bags that were prominently displayed were the bags from the Ramesh Nair time, the creative director who had left the brand in 2021. When I first spoke about the brand, I'm going to attach the video above, I spoke about the new styles that were introduced by the new creative director, Nicholas Knightley. And soon after that, creating that video, I would literally say months, 2-3 months later, I had a number of viewers reach out and say, I like the Voyage, I've tried to buy it, but it's been discontinued. And I thought, that's not correct. Surely you've made a mistake. Reached out to the brand on their behalf and found out they'd actually discontinued the style. You discontinue a style when it's not doing well, when it's not selling. And what I noticed is that the other styles, the baluchon, the wheel bag, for example, they weren't available in store. They weren't displayed in store. They were in the stockroom, and it was only on request that they would bring them out. The only style from Nicholas Knightley's creations that was advertised in store that you could see displayed was the Flory, alongside all of Ramesh Nair's bags, the Gabrielle, the Gabby, the Rajan, bags that were doing incredibly well and continued to do well long after he had left. And what they were doing was just tweaking and adding new leathers, colors, slightly tweaking the design, for example. But what you saw essentially and what was selling and doing incredibly well for the brand were the Ramesh Nair designs. And then last summer, June, July 2023, I went into the Mount Street store in London to take a look at what new styles Nicholas Knightley had introduced. And the only style I saw tucked away in the back of the showroom, it's made up of 2 rooms, was a clutch, the envelope clutch. The only thing that I liked that was appealing were the colors. Moynat's known for their use of color, and there were a lot of color options which I liked. But when I looked at the bag, I was absolutely stumped because the bag was incredibly basic. And up until that point, Moynat, to myself and other consumers, was a brand that had been reopened in 2010, 2011 by Ramesh Nair after it had initially opened in 1849, closed down for a period of time, and then reopened in 2010. And when it was reopened, Ramesh had set an incredibly high benchmark. He used the finest quality leathers in the industry. Hardware was custom made. The craft that went into the bags was absolutely phenomenal. And the bags were finished to a very high standard. What he was producing was game-changing. It was exemplary to the other brands. So that's what we were accustomed to. I remember seeing the marquetry. He was the first to introduce marquetry. And then other brands started to create their own variation. So that is what I was accustomed to, and I'm sure other consumers. And so when I saw the envelope, incredibly basic, the craft that had gone into it was minimal. It was just the bare minimal to create a bag. There wasn't even a clasp on the front. Any hardware, it was a magnetic component. The strap, which was made of hardware, was very light. It wasn't quality at all. And the edge coating was thick. It was I don't even know how to describe it. It just was off. And I thought, this is not what we're accustomed to. What is going on? And I thought, my goodness, this can't be right. Reached out to the brand, didn't get a response, but instead I found out that Nicholas Knightley had left. I was initially surprised, but I wasn't disappointed. I just didn't think he was the type of creative director who had the right level of experience to take over from the brand, where Ramesh Nair had set an incredibly high benchmark, and then to take it to the next level, which would have been phenomenal bags. And so I thought, this is strange. An alarm bell started ringing, because top tier luxury brands, as far as I'm concerned, they need a creative director. You cannot run a top tier luxury brand without a creative director. And when I asked Moynat what's going on, they said, we have a design team we're working closely with. I thought, what do you mean a design team you're working closely with? So the team in store work with the design team, let them know what's working, talk to consumers, and they figure something, hash something, cobble something together. Well, it certainly hasn't worked with the envelope clutch. And I thought, this can't be right. When you look at top tier brands in the industry, you have Hermes, for example. They are setting the pace and tone when it comes to luxury at the top end. They have a leather goods creative director, Priscilla Spring. Recently, in the last couple of months, Bulgari have introduced a leather goods creative director, Mary Katranzu, the fashion designer who has her own eponymous brand. And then you have Joseph Duclos, where Ramesh Nair has gone on to, and he is producing absolutely amazing products. And then you have Velextra as well, with a creative director, and I'll be talking about Velextra soon. And I just thought, it doesn't work when a brand thinks, especially at the top end, that they can just cobble together a selection of designs. It doesn't work like that. You need a creative director who's able to interpret, produce designs that are representative of the brand and still upholding the high standards of the brand and producing designs that are commercially successful. I just think sometimes when a big luxury group owns a brand, look at, for example, Delvaux. I recently spoke about them. I'm going to attach the video above. Their creative director left when Richemont bought the brand. And I've been watching the brand very closely because they've come out with a couple of designs. The Lingot, which I really like. I've been asked about the Lyonce, but the Lyonce is a variation of an old design. But they've been able to maintain the standards a lot better than what Moynat are doing. But I'm still incredibly cautious when it comes to Delvaux. And I don't know if the big brands like Louis Vuitton, Moët Hennessy, who ultimately own Moynat, or Delvaux, think that they can forego a creative director and ride off the back of their power, their might. They're very powerful within the luxury space, and therefore they can just push their designs and they'll do well. But with top tier luxury, it's a totally different beast. You need a creative director leading the brand, actively steering the ship. So when I heard they don't have a creative director, I became incredibly nervous. And then fast forward to earlier on this year, and a few of you reached out and said, have you heard that Moynat have closed their e-commerce? I was absolutely gobsmacked when I heard this. And major alarm bells started ringing, because that said to me, this is the beginning of the end. You do not have a brand that's doing incredibly well, that is proud of their products, that is producing amazing bags, removing their e-commerce facility. They removed their e-commerce facility, and this is not based on any conversations or anything that I've heard. This is purely based on my own personal opinions and thoughts. You remove it because you want to check out. You're done. Because you're not producing bags that are worthy, that are good enough. You want to control something because you don't have any control over what you're producing. The quality's gone down. They're slowly starting to check out their bags. They're trying to remove them. A lot of their bags have gone on sale, and they've kept a few. Earlier on in the year, I was in Southeast Asia and found out that the Rajan, with the exception of the brown colored and black Rajan, they've all gone on sale 40% off. And this was in Hong Kong. And I remember looking at one of the bags, the one that I thought I could possibly buy. And I noticed a tear in the leather. And I inquired, and I said to the assistant, what's going on here? What is this? And she said, oh, that's a tear. Please be careful with the bag. They are delicate, and with wear and tear, the leather could tear. And I thought, that's not what I want to hear when a bag costs £3,000, £4,000, £5,000. That's not what you want to hear. And the leather that I was accustomed to, that I remember seeing pre-2021 and soon after, for a year, 2 years after that, was absolutely exquisite. It was supple, it was soft, but it was robust leather. This was very different leather. I remember in Singapore meeting a fantastic young man who was incredibly gracious and candid with all the information, and I was able to learn quite a bit from him. For example, wallets, the small leather goods are now being produced in Spain. The bags are now being made either in Italy and in France using a mixture of leathers. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is tricky, because it preempted a conversation I'd like to have in a different video, a much fuller conversation. But when it comes to leathers, the French have always been known to produce the finest quality leathers. They used to have hundreds of tanneries in the past, and they've whittled them down to about 20, 30, 40 tanneries. And those tanneries are now focused on producing the finest, the very best leathers in the industry. Moynat is no longer sourcing leathers from the best tanneries anymore. The leathers they're now using are not the best anymore. The hardware they're now using is not custom made, it's made to order, it's catalog hardware. The details have changed, the edge coating is different, it's not as thinly, neatly, evenly applied. Every single aspect of the bag has changed. And I remember creating a reaction video, which I'm going to attach above, to Moynat is in Trouble. And everything I said in the video, I stand by it. If anything, this video will confirm absolutely everything that I said in that video. And it just makes me incredibly sad to think, wow, this might actually be the beginning of the end for Moynat. I don't know this for a fact, but when I look at their actions, actions speak louder than words. It feels as if Moynat is that person in the party who has decided they want to leave the party, but they're not going to tell anybody. And they slowly back away towards the door, making sure no one can see they're heading for the door. And then, boom, they disappear. And then at the end of the party, when the diehards are dissecting the party, talking about everything that happened, someone says, when did Moynat leave? And they realize, oh my gosh, Moynat checked out ages ago without saying goodbye. And I feel that's Moynat. They've checked out of the party. They're slowly leaving the arena. They won't necessarily announce it's game over, because that would, I guess, feel as if they're admitting defeat. LVMH is the biggest luxury group. They don't fail. They have the power, the might to achieve the extraordinary. And so by slowly backing away, what we're seeing now is they're getting rid of the leathers, Ramesh Nair's bags, they're going on sale, they're getting rid of them. What they were making before is very different. I remember when I looked at the brand, it was the Ramesh Nair quality, the bags that they produce significant quantities at a number of stores around the world, so they would have had stock. All of that stock is gone, and then the stock they had in place, the leathers, the hardware, all of that is now finished, and they're now using new products all around that are not of the same quality. And so consumers are now faced with a situation where Ramesh Nair, when he was at Moynat, he built it into a phenomenal brand, a brand that was game-changing. It set the benchmark. It was exemplary to the other brands when it came to the phenomenal leathers, the craftsmanship, the exceptional craftsmanship, and all of that has gone. But the premium is still there, but consumers are not getting the same quality product for the premium. It's an inferior, a lower quality product for the price that they're paying. And so it's such a shame. And in the reaction video, I was asked my thoughts on the Gabrielle. Has it changed? It has changed. I won't necessarily talk about the Rajan, because the Rajan and the Gabrielle are exactly the same in terms of the core hardware, the leather. The only difference is the clasps on front. They are different, but they both have changed. Everything has changed on the bags, and I'll talk about that in detail. Before I begin, I'd like to extend a very big thank you to everybody who has helped with providing bags that I've been able to look at in order to facilitate this video comparing a pre-2021 and post-2021 bag. A very big thank you to you all. Everything on the bags has changed. Starting with the leather, I remember long before 2021, I'm talking mid-2000s, 2014, 15, 16, looking at their bags and thinking how sumptuous the torillon was. It was soft, it was plump, it had a very subtle sheen, it was beautiful, it was exquisite. It was the same torillon that Hermes uses for their Birkins. So it's a torillon I'm incredibly comfortable with, and I could see it was exactly the same with Moynat, but the new leather that they're using, it's almost like it's an imitation. It's still soft, but it's nowhere near as plump. Some of the bags, depending on the bag you look at, depending on the batch, some have a very subtle sheen, some don't have the very subtle sheen that comes with time, but they're dull. It's almost like it's an imitation torillon, a wannabe torillon. And I thought, wow, this is really different. This has changed. And I remember when I was in Hong Kong, I mentioned earlier, I was showing some bags on half, they were selling for 40% less. And I remember distinctly looking at them and thinking, this is not the torillon we're accustomed to. This is a different batch. It didn't have the matte, the very subtle sheen. It was matte, it was fairly dull. There wasn't a sheen to it. It was soft, but it didn't have the plumpness. And then in Singapore, looking at two Gabbies side by side, the leathers were very different. The one on the right had slightly more of a sheen in comparison to the one on the left, but they were two different batches of torillon, two different leathers. And I thought, this is not the original leather that they started off with. This is now a different leather that they're now sourcing and they're using, and they've got different batches maybe coming in from different tanneries. I don't know, but the leather has changed. It's different, and I don't think any of the bags left now are using any of the old original torillon. The next thing is the hardware. So looking at the Gabrielle, and I know it will be the same for the Reggiane, it's no longer the custom hardware. Possibly it's being made in a catalog, mass produced. With the pre-2021 clasp on the Gabrielle, the opening mechanism, there's a very subtle firmness to it. So when you turn it, it's a firm movement. The movement is different, the mechanism is different. The post-2021, it's a lighter, quick movement when you turn the clasp to open the bag. The legs on the underside of the bag are also different. The pre-2021, the legs are perfect squares. The corners are angular. Whereas with the post-21, the corners are rounded on the legs. When you look at the hardware that's attached onto the handle, that is used to attach the additional strap, there's also a difference in the pre and the post 2021. Pre 2021, the ring was thicker than what it is now post 2021. And then when you look at the handle, although I don't have proof of this, this is just something I thought it would be a very easy way to cut costs. All of the handles, the pre 2021 handles, were firm, they were hard. And how they achieved the firmness was building in layers of leather in the handle. And I would imagine they've removed the leather that was on the inside of the handle, and they're using possibly a cheaper material. That's a very easy way to reduce the cost without the consumer ever knowing. And it's something that I don't have proof, but I would imagine that is something they possibly have done. The other difference that I've noted, and this is a fairly major one, is the edge coating. And this is what confirmed everything. Pre-2021 bags, the hardware was incredibly neat. It was even. It was literally flawlessly painted onto the edges. Whereas post-2021, the Gabrielle I looked at, I noticed there was a section where the edge coating was not even. It wasn't consistent at all. And I also noticed with the same bag, the Gabrielle post-2021, that there were holes in the leather where the stitching had been done. And this was everywhere. There were 4 sections where there were little holes. And I thought, oh my goodness. And I've extended, I've zoomed in on the picture so that you can see it for clarity. But even without zooming in, when you look at the bag with your naked eye, you can see the little holes. And I'm thinking, if you're paying over £4,000 for a bag, I don't want a bag where there are holes where the stitching is. And when I raised this with the brand, they said, oh, we'll send it back to the workshop. But it shouldn't have even made its way into the store if it had holes to begin with. Those are the differences. The leather's different. The hardware is different. The edge coating is different. I've spoken about the handle, the legs on the underside. And I would imagine the craft has also changed. The way the bags are made has changed. They may have cut out steps. Logic tells me they have changed. If they've changed everything physically on the bag, how it's made, I'm sure they've gone for a level of craft where they may have even cut out stages. I wouldn't be surprised, and that is exactly what I would expect. But all is not lost. What I would recommend is, as I said in the reaction video, I'm not comfortable recommending the brand, nor would I ever consider spending my hard-earned money on a new bag. I don't think they have any of the pre-2021 bags from Ramesh Nair's time that you can buy, that you can request. I think they may all be gone, or maybe they're keeping them for VIPs, I don't know. But even buying the bag half price, I still don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth your money. You're not getting the value you deserve for the price that's being charged. What I would recommend is buying the bags on the pre-loved market. And if you're able to confirm it's a Ramesh Nair bag, then by all means go for it. I think that's the best way to buy Moynat bags if you don't already have one. But what I will do is I'm going to create a playlist, a short playlist, where I will release a number of visuals of various Moynat bags that have been discontinued, that are sloshing around in the pre-loved market, as a way of entertaining you, a bit of bag porn, but also if you are looking for visuals to help you authenticate a bag, because I don't think there's an authentication service for Moynat bags that aren't being sold anymore. And I'll have bags such as Mignon, Tango, I have an Echo in there, I have a Lulu, for example. There are a number of bags, and I'll add those to the playlist. But what I'll also do is, it'll be a playlist that will be constantly evolving. I will add other bags from different brands, just as a way of authenticating, so you can see what an original bag looks like, particularly if you're buying it pre-loved and you want to be able to compare and contrast with the bag that you're being offered. So all is not lost. I highly recommend the pre-loved market, specifically going for the pre-2021 bags. So those are the changes when it comes to the Gabrielle. It's what I've seen with my own eyes, and what I added on in terms of the craft. Logic would tell me if they've changed everything else physically, then how they make the bag, they will try and reduce the costs and possibly cut out a step or two. Any thoughts, any questions? As always, let me know in the comments down below.